Alright, so I'm just gonna document the process on modifying my 8th gen Civic Si. I'm interested in trying to go for some forced induction at some point, but today we're gonna start with the exhaust, and we're going with a Skunk 2 Alpha Series race header. Alright, the first step is to gain access to the header, and what we're going to have to do that is pull the engine shroud off. Alright, to do this, we're just going to pop it up at the corners here. First corner here just kind of pops up out of place. See, it comes up there, got some nice room. And the second corner should come out as well, similar way. Pops up. This whole thing is removable. You might have a little tag here. Mine didn't have it, a little Christmas tree fastener. So mine really just kind of pops out. You're gonna wanna remember to remove the T right here, the hose connector for your washer fluid, before you fully remove it from the vehicle. Just pops out like that. And you're all set to take the shroud and place it out of the way for now. Alright, now once we've gotten that plastic shroud off, you're left with this aluminum covering the engine, and we need to get that off next. Pretty simple. It's going to be two 10mm bolts on either side, here and here. And once we get those off, we're left with what I believe are three 10mm bolts. We got one right there, and the final one in the back right there. Alrighty, we've got the metal shroud off, and the next step is a little bit tricky. We actually have to go behind the engine block and remove the heat shield. So it's going to be three 10mm bolts right on top of the header there. One in the back looks a little bit rusty, but they should all come off pretty easy. Definitely going to need an extension behind there, and this is when small hands will definitely come in handy. So I was able to get the first two bolts off just fine, but when coming to the third one, it would rotate perhaps 3 rotations and then just wouldn't anymore. So I'm not sure if it's stripped there, but we've got enough clearance to get to the bolts on the header here, and that's all we really need to do. I guess this is a pretty common issue on these cars, so don't be too alarmed if yours doesn't come out. You just can pry up your heat shield to get to the required bolts there. So the next step is going to be to remove these header bolts here. I believe there is 3 of them. One on the far side, one in the center, and then one on the passenger side here. And they're going to be 14mm. I recommend using a deep socket for the far bolts on either side. And then you can use a regular socket on the center if you like, but you might as well keep the deep socket going. It would be easier to prop up the heat shield if you're unable to get it off. You can use like a smaller extension on one of the header pipes. Just push it up just so that you can use both hands to get all the bolts off. Alright, next you're going to want to take off the O2 sensors. This is pretty easily done with a 22mm crow's foot or flare wrench. Really just fit it around and loosen it off. Should take no time at all. Your next step you're going to want to take is use a 12mm ratchet with a few extensions on it and take off these bolts that are holding springs onto the exhaust there. Once you remove those sprung bolts, the exhaust should pretty much fall off the header, and then you're going to want to remove the 3 14mm bolts that are attached to the catalytic converter here. So I finally got the OEM header out. What we actually ended up having to do to remove it from the bay after we had unbolted it was we removed the stock air box and all of its connecting pieces around here, and then we loosened this bracket there's bolts on the side here, and then removed all of that, kind of pushed the coolant hoses and whatnot down, and the vacuum lines, and just kind of finagled it out through the side here until it was fully removed. And then installing the Alpha Series header was very easy. We really just went underneath the car and jiggled it up in through. There's a little opening in the back there. A little bit hard to see, but you can kind of just run it up through from the bottom. And it's, you know, pretty simple. Just push it up, get the gasket on right, and then bolt it in, 5 bolts, put it right back, and no biggie. Next, you're gonna have to connect the exhaust to the manifold underneath the car. Alrighty, once you got all the header bolted up and everything up top, pretty snug, you're gonna want to take the plate that connects to the base of the header to bolt it to the tri-bolt exhaust, and you're gonna basically just like put it up on the header, and then use these spring bolts through the sides to connect it to the two there. And this can swivel, so don't worry about that. It'll turn to match the exhaust bolts. So the most important thing is just get these 2 bolts lined up with those and bolted together. All right, so the last thing you're going to want to do is get your oxygen sensor extension. I got mine from Skunk. It's pretty much the best there is. And you're going to detach the O2 sensor from the wire right there, attach the extension, and then run the extension down underneath the car next to the header, and then reattach the O2 sensor wire underneath the car. Alright, so once you have everything buttoned up, bolted together, and plugged in, you're pretty much all set. You can enjoy your new header. I strongly recommend pairing this with Flash Pro with base map there. Everything's going to breathe a lot better. I'm not sure what the gains are. About to do a little bit of a butt dyno, and hopefully things are all well. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it.